What do Theranos, home HIV testing, and consumer-driven testing have in common? An urgent need for safety and quality oversight. By Deirdre Corey, Shana Rodriguez, and Amanda Ivy. Our goal in this presentation is to address the quality and patient safety issues presented by direct-to-consumer and over-the-counter innovations in medical testing. Non-healthcare companies are disruptors, which means that they are outsiders capitalizing on innovations while disrupting the status quo and displacing traditional markets, value networks, and modes of delivery. To illustrate, the prevalence of smartphones could be considered a disruptor to the home computing industry because innovations with smartphone performance and capabilities has led to people being able to get by without a laptop or desktop if they only have basic web and communication needs. Examples of disruptors in healthcare, besides the direct consumer self-tests that are the focus of this presentation, are home delivery pharmacy, telehealth, and auxiliary employee wellness programs. The market for consumer-driven self-testing has gained substantial momentum in the United States for reasons such as ease of access, affordability, and opportunity for early diagnosis. However, many of the results provided by the self-testing kits have proved to be highly inaccurate and lowers the quality of health for its consumers, and it acts as a disruptor for quality medical care. Some examples of direct-to-consumer self-testing kits are genetic testing, pregnancy tests, and ovulation kits, HIV testing, and cancer screening kits, to name a few. As we'll discuss in this presentation, there is an urgent need to address concerns around the safety and quality of these direct-to-consumer testing products. The root causes for urgency are first, the predicted exponential growth in this market for groundbreaking technological advances. Next, the disruptor companies are outside of the traditional healthcare sector and do not have the same self-imposed quality and safety culture as hospitals and physicians. This leads to faulty products that have not been subject to property quality and safety control pilots. Last, the consumer is in the driver's seat and may or may not have consulted a doctor, leaving it all up to the patient to decide if, when, and what test to order, and how also to interpret and self-diagnose sometimes very complex test results. Pictured in this slide is Elizabeth Holmes, the creator of Theranos, which is a startup blood assay company. The mission of the company was to perform a full portfolio of blood test services at low cost with great community obtainability using an incredibly small amount of blood. The process was to be simple. All a consumer had to do was obtain a pinprick of blood and send the sample to Theranos' lab. Theranos would then utilize advanced nanotechnology and economies of scale to perform life-saving testing, allowing the population access to valuable preventative health information. However, Theranos' success was short-lived, as it was discovered that the results provided by Theranos were highly inaccurate because the tests performed on the tiny amounts of blood obtained by the patients were diluted with water. Theranos' deficient testing and fraudulent test result deliveries completely ignored the need for patient safety and result accuracy. Patients were, in fact, hospitalized due to the wrongful results of critical potassium values, and as a result began a class action lawsuit against Theranos. This slide shows some of the main points of the Theranos case study. The criminal case against Elizabeth Holmes is still ongoing. Reliance on federal and state oversight and lawsuits to address safety concerns of direct-to-consumer tests is ill-founded. The FDA admits its own shortcomings in oversight of many of these products. Some products, known as LDTs, which are diagnostic tests designed, manufactured, and used within a single laboratory, take advantage of an FDA loophole and can skip pre-market FDA approval altogether. The FDA's efforts to implement more stringent oversights have stalled. The FDA detailed many public risks of LDTs in its 2015 report calling for more oversight. But remarkably, the FDA seems to be changing course and taking a more innovation-friendly approach. CMS Clinical Laboratory Improvement Amendments, or CLIA oversight, just monitor laboratory operations, not the validity of the product itself. State laws are not comprehensive and vary from state to state, adding to the confusing array of possible legal claims. Miscellaneous laws also come into play, like the Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act of 2008 and the Federal Trade Commission's requirements for truthful advertising. Finally, case law and burgeoning legal and ethical theories may offer some legal guidance. For example, whether or not genetic testing for diagnostic purposes is the practice of medicine. Most critically, the legal landscape provides only a reactive approach to safety and quality issues with these tests, when what is needed is a proactive approach. As a brief background on using an FMEA chart, the subject or problem that is being assessed is assigned a risk priority number, or RPN. The RPN for each test is calculated by predicting levels of severity, that is, what effect does an inaccurate result have on the consumer? Occurrence, how often the result could be inaccurate, and detection, how easily can one identify that the results were inaccurate. The goal of the FMEA is to have recommended actions bring a test's RPN and associated risk level as low as possible. In conducting research for our paper, we analyzed 7 self-testing kits. However, this slide shows the 3 kits that had the highest risk levels, which are Theranos Blood Assay, the Home Access Express HIV Test Kit, and the First Check at Home Drug Test. Companies who distribute self-testing kits with high risk levels could implement the Plan, Do, Study, Act model, also known as the PDSA model, pictured in this slide, to analyze possible risk causes such as consumer motivation to purchase the test, whether there are any existing preconditions, and whether a physician referred and or interpreted the test for the consumer. Tracking this type of consumer profile information allows the company to set up carefully designed and database safeguards to combat indicated risks. Next, if the test results warrant medical attention or treatment, the company should recommend the consumer obtain necessary care with optional links to nearby medical facilities for medical care. Test companies could also implement control charts, also pictured in this slide, to centralize and measure this process. Some additional recommendations to lessen the risk levels of self-testing kits are to self-police outside of regulatory frameworks with practices like an industry-wide self-funded consortium funded by members to establish best practices informed by quality and safety improvement methods. Standardize and review FDA and CMS filings by innovators before submission, and within regulatory framework, implementing stringent oversight of self-categorization of medical devices such as LDTs, Category 1, 2, or 3, and amendments to CLIA oversight of LDTs. Has the patient morphed so much into a consumer that instead of healthcare's do no harm guiding principle, we are now guided by the commerce principle, let the buyer beware? Sophisticated and well-vetted patient safety and quality improvement efforts receive incredible amounts of human and financial capital within the healthcare community in its ethical quest to avert sentinel events. At the heart of patient safety is the goal that patients will not experience unnecessary harm, pain, or other suffering. The morphing of patient into consumer is insidiously redrawing boundaries and expectations related to life-saving healthcare services. Direct-to-consumer testing companies, as they reap profit while disrupting the healthcare sector, must be held to the same standard that the medical community adheres to. First, do no harm. Alarmingly, the FDA reports that the information on adverse events associated with LDTs is not systematically collected or reported. The clear implication is that we do not have accurate measurement of adverse events to even begin improving safeguards. Quality improvement systems are rarely able to keep pace with innovation. Innovation disrupts. In other words, healthcare insiders must continue advocating for a stringent application of the same safety and quality standards demanded within the healthcare setting to outside disruptor companies as they innovate to provide healthcare products to consumers. Whether government or self-imposed measures are taken, ensuring that these testing innovations are an enhancement rather than a deterrent to the health and welfare of patients, consumers is paramount. Much of Theranos' initial unfounded success can be attributed to his esteemed board of directors, including politically connected and well-heeled executives such as former Secretaries of State and Treasury, former Defense Secretary, and former high-ranking senators from both political parties. See Appendix A for Theranos Board of Directors. Appendix B is our completed FMEA chart with the 7 test kits that were analyzed and assessed with their corresponding RPNs.
Team 2 thanks you for viewing our presentation. We've enjoyed learning with all of you.